Hello, everybody. This video is about gatekeeping for the LGBTQ plus community. It's going to be focused more for trans and non binary people. Gatekeeping does happen to everyone in the community, and sometimes even for people that's not in the community. And gatekeeping for any means is not okay. But for trans and gender diverse people, medical gender affirmation always requires interaction with some kind of health professional or medical body. When a health professional uses a model of informed consent and takes a patient led approach to facilitating medical affirmation, there is a balance of medical care and oversight with patient needs, wishes, and hopes. Gatekeeping happens when health professionals place unnecessary and unfair hurdles in the path of affirmative care and requires trans and gender diverse patients to prove who we are and that we really want or need access to medically affirming care. For those who seek it, gender affirming medical interventions can be a critically important part of how we affirm our gender. Interventions are not only medical necessary, but life saving. All gender affirming care must be inclusive, self determined, and rights based. Barriers to timely, culturally safe, and accessible medical gender affirmation can result in tragic consequences. Gatekeeping can look like many things. Few examples: refusing to take on trans or gender diverse patients and clients, requiring unnecessary steps in order to access gender affirmation, mandating a psychiatric or endocrinologist evaluation for all patients, delaying gender affirming care without a clear health based reason or for reasons of watchful waiting, a well established conversion practice, not providing all the information or answers as to why a particular decision has been made, requiring trans and gender diverse people to adopt a binary identity or refusing to accept or learn about non binary identities, requiring invasive and unnecessary examinations or testing in order to access care, engaging in conversion or aversion therapy or gender identity change efforts, any discussion of rapid onset gender dysphoria, overinflation of regret rates. You have the right to safe and considered affirmative care, free from experiences of gatekeeping or disrespect. If you feel that a health professional is acting as a gatekeeper to your care, providing resources to them might assist their learning and strengthen their practice. It is not a requirement for any patient or client to give the so called person in charge a lesson. It's not required that you explain the law to people or anything of that manner. However, if it is a doctor that you've been around for quite a while, maybe it's a family doctor or the only doctor in your town or close by, that you could give some pamphlets to from PFLAG, GLAD. They have a lot of resources available. There's probably some on the community tab as well that you could print off and give it to them and ask them to just sit down and talk to you about it, help educate them, because there are still a lot of doctors and stuff that just don't understand. You know, the older ones, they weren't taught this stuff in their schooling. And it doesn't make them a bad doctor just because they don't understand. What makes them a bad doctor is when they understand and they don't care. So sometimes just assisting them with some information actually strengthens their practice. And it not only helps you, but it can help others that would also be going to that particular doctor. Now, if the doctor is just a rude asshole and doesn't want to learn, doesn't want to listen, doesn't want to understand, doesn't want to gain the concept of, everybody is different, then you have the right to move on to a different doctor. Find somebody that's already educated in this. And sometimes that's the best thing to do. When I first transitioned, the doctor that started me on the hormones and did my hysterectomy was somebody that had already delivered two of my kids. And he knew the family pretty well. So when I went to him and I told him, I'm like, look, I want to have a hysterectomy. And he's like, okay, we can do this. I had already had 6 kids. So he's like, yeah, we can do this. He's like, we can leave the ovaries or we can start you on estrogen 2-3 weeks after the surgery. And I was like, no, I want testosterone. And he was like, okay. He's like, we can do that. He's like, but I don't know the proper doses for starting. He's like, I've never done this before. And he looked me straight in the eye and he said, help me understand. And I was like, okay. So I contacted a doctor in Pennsylvania and I asked if he could send me the basics of what blood tests or, what the whole process would be like in order to healthy start. I don't mean just start to get started because that's what was needed. I was looking for the healthy way. And he did. He emailed me back with the certain blood tests for the hormone levels and stuff like that. And I think there was maybe like a liver blood test or something. I don't remember. It was so many years ago. And what the normal starting dose is. So I got all that information and I gave it to the doctor and he studied it for a couple of days and then he called me back into the office and he gave me my prescription and I went and got it filled. I went back to the office and he gave me my first shot. There was no gatekeeping whatsoever. But he was an older doctor and he was able to admit that he didn't know. And, I still went to him for like 6 years, 7 years after that first, you know, a, approach to him, this is what I want, this is what I need. It was still like 6.5, 7 years, something like that. He ended up changing clinics and then it got all complicated and not complicated with him, but complicated with the system of that clinic that he had joined. And so I just went to Planned Parenthood after that. But that was a time that discussing with the doctor the needs, the reasons why, learning together, and it worked out great. I'm not saying everybody's going to have that great experience because honestly, I was not even expecting that great experience from everything that I had heard in the past of gatekeeping. And gatekeeping is something that we know is going to happen. We expect it to happen. And when it doesn't happen, it's like, oh, holy shit. Like, what the hell did I just walk into? You know, we always pretty much expect the worst because we're going to have those extra tests. We're going to have those extra fees. We're going to have those extra waiting periods. You know, you may go to the doctor, you may get onto your hormones, and let's say they have to, they prescribe you a certain amount of milligrams each week. Well, to get that shot, you make another appointment, and it may not be the doctor, but it may be the receptionist. Well, we don't have an opening on this day, so you're going to come in 3 weeks from now. But your shot's supposed to be weekly. So even if the doctor is accepting and willing to work with you and understand and, do what's right, there's that receptionist, there's that nurse, there's that aide, there's that intern, you know, something usually always goes wrong. And it is okay to find another doctor. If working with your doctor does not pan out like you expect it to, it is perfectly reasonable to search, find a doctor that will be right for you. It's your right. But if you are able and willing, and not everybody is, and that is perfectly fine too, because like I said, there is no rule in the book that says you have to educate your doctor. But if you are in a situation similar to like what I was, then it's okay to educate the doctor. It's okay to talk it out. It's okay to figure it out together. You can reach out to another doctor, even in another state. Pennsylvania is very, very welcoming, by the way. The doctor there, he had no hesitation with giving me the information that I needed, even though he got nothing out of it. He did not bill my insurance for the consultation. It was just strictly an email. I had nothing to verify that I was trans, that nothing. It was just questions and answers. And you can find that in a lot of places. So don't give up hope. It may not happen with the first doctor, but it will happen. And if you feel that you have been discriminated against or otherwise treated unlawfully, and gatekeeping can lead to illegal practices, you can and you should file a claim. You can file with the medical boards. You can file with there's a nursing board. You can file with your insurance claims department, and you can even go to a court and file, because you know who you are and you know what you need. Starting out, you may not know the dose that you need. You may not know the blood tests that you need. You may not know what your next step is going to be, but you know who you are and what you need. And if you have a chance to help a doctor learn, or a nurse, or even that random secretary that always likes to get your pronouns and stuff wrong, if you can educate them and they're actually somewhat willing to learn, then that's a good thing to do. It helps so many people coming up behind you. It helps you. And it's less trouble than you actually would consider it to be. But as I said, this video was based on trans and gender diverse people. There is gatekeeping and stuff that happens a lot with gay men as far as seeking PrEP. And with a couple of lesbian couples that I know, for an example, one was having a lot of female problems and wanted or needed a hysterectomy. She didn't really want the hysterectomy, but that was what she had decided on with her partner, that her partner was the one that was actually going to conceive and stuff because of her health issues, and that the hysterectomy was what they chose for, to basically save the partner's life, right? And that couple had went through many doctors and finally found one, like the 20th doctor, 25th doctor, like doctors in different places, different states, different consultations. And they finally found one that would do the hysterectomy and wouldn't base it on the whole, well, you'll find somebody someday and you'll want to have kids. That was one of the biggest gatekeeping claims that I think I have actually helped somebody file. Like, that thing ended up being really, really long and drug out. And on the other side of that, this little young gay couple, um, they were wanting to get started on PrEP. And they started telling me about some of the tests and going to a counselor, and they had to have like 8 months of counseling and stuff before the doctor would even prescribe it, and like just a whole bunch of different stuff that when I told them to go to another doctor that I personally have never used, but I've heard other people talk about getting good results with him. When I helped them set up with that doctor, they walked in, they did their paperwork, and they both walked out. I mean, it took about an hour and a half being new patients and all, but they walked out with their script and they've been going there ever since. So, gatekeeping happens to everybody within the community and even people outside of the community, like the elderly and stuff like that. Gatekeeping is something that everybody should be aware of, and you should know your rights when it comes to such treatment. I hope that everybody has a wonderful day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and don't let the gatekeepers keep you away from your dreams.